Hey everybody, it's Claire. I'm one half of the Ormewoods and we're here in Zone 7B north of Atlanta for one of our weekly garden tours. And it is Halloween weekend, so we hope that you guys are gonna have a really good time and a safe time. It's raining here, so instead of being out in the garden today, we thought we would show you some things in our kitchen. So I don't know if any of you are seeing some food supply shortages at the grocery store, but we certainly are. And I also own Bennett's Market and Deli downtown, which is a little small boutique, market deli. And we're having some supply chain issues. And one of the things that I recently went to pick up was some Bragg's apple cider vinegar. And many of you may know that Bragg's is organic, and it's one of the brands of apple cider vinegar that has the mother. So it's unpasteurized, and it's really, really good for you. And we use it for cooking, but also for a lot of holistic medicinal purposes. So when I went to get some and the grocery store was completely out, I was like, oh gosh, we're getting into cold and flu season. This is not something I want to be without. So I started doing some research, and I found out, and it kind of blew my mind because I didn't really realize this, I don't know why I didn't realize this, that you can make apple cider vinegar from scratch at home. And I thought, well, let me give that a try because I've never done it, and that could be really great to get going. So I thought I would show you what that looks like to do. I have a batch that I started a couple of weeks ago, so when I get done with this, I'm gonna show you what that looks like so you can see what to do after you do this initial step. And then it'll still take 2 more months to sit before it's usable. So I thought it was pretty good idea to get going now, and if you wanted to try this now, you would have some finished apple cider vinegar with the mother by the end of the year. So the first step, and let me say this, all of everything that I'm doing is going to be listed in the not the comments, but in the description section, so you'll be able to follow the recipe, so you don't have to write anything down. The first thing that you want to do is you want to take your apples, and of course these are organic Granny Smith apples. My understanding is you can use any kind of apple you want. Just want to make sure they're clean and washed, and you can actually use cores and stems. The batch that I did a couple of weeks ago, I actually did a Pink Lady, a Honey Crisp, and a Granny Smith. So I did a mixture of apples. In this one, we're just using these 2 pretty large Granny Smith apples, and I'm just filling up this mason jar, and you want to fill it up halfway, okay? That is really important because part of the process of making the vinegar is fermentation, and fermentation needs headspace. So if you fill it all the way up to here, you may potentially blow your lid off, and you don't want to do that. So we're going to fill it up halfway, and that actually looks like it's about to fill up this mason jar. So I may grab another mason jar, and we'll make 2 of these. But for the purpose of this video, I'll just do this one, show you what that's like, so that you can follow along. So that's about where we are. Now you can use the cores. In this instance, I'm gonna save this for my other one because this is already way more than halfway full. So here's this. So after you get your apple pieces in there, and I want you to think about how easy this is, what you need to do, funnel's over here, is fill it up with water. And it's really important that you measure how many cups of water it takes you to fill this up, because you're gonna add 1 tablespoon of sugar to every 1 cup of water, okay? And that's gonna help the fermentation process happen. So this is a 4-cup measuring cup, which obviously we won't use this whole thing. So let me just see what it takes to fill this thing up. Almost 2 cups. So it's taken me about 2 cups of water to fill this up, which means I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of sugar. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Toss it in there, and then watch how easy this is. Let me get a wooden spoon. We're just going to sort of push everything down and get it all in there and mixed. I mean, it's really pretty easy. And then after you do this, what you're gonna wanna do is cover it, and this is important, you guys, so don't skip this step. Use a coffee filter, okay? Fruit flies are drawn to vinegar, and they're drawn to some of the chemicals that are in this fermentation process, the alcohol, and you do not want fruit flies in your batch, okay? So if you use a cheesecloth, a lot of times the cheesecloths are woven too thickly and the fruit flies can get into your mixture, versus a coffee filter, they cannot. So you can use a coffee filter like this and put a rubber band on it. What we've been doing, honestly, with our other batch is just sort of stacking them like this and then weighting them down. Well, that didn't work, did it? Weighting it down with the spoon, and that works just fine. But every single day, you wanna go in here and you wanna stir this up, partly because you wanna make sure that the sugar doesn't stay at the bottom. You also wanna make sure that the apples that are at the top get moved around, because you don't wanna have any mold. So you're gonna do this for about 2 weeks, and then let me show you what our batch looks like from 2 weeks ago that we got started for the next step. Okay, so here's the batch that I started 2 weeks ago. Now, look at my fancy pants coffee filters. They've really upheld well. And listen to the sound of the carbonation. Can you hear it? Okay, so every day for 2 weeks, we've been stirring it. I went out of town for a weekend. My sweet family was kind enough to stir this every day. Look how much murkier it is. That is the mother happening, okay? So now that it's been 2 weeks, I can strain it. So what I'm gonna do, you can probably strain it differently. I'm a little bit of a mess, so it's easier for me to do a 2-part strain so it doesn't splatter. I'm gonna strain it into a big old bowl. This particular go around took me 8 cups of water. So 8 cups of water, then mixed with 8 tablespoons of sugars, and of course I just put the apples in into the halfway mark. So, okay, so now I have strained apple cider vinegar, and in fact it looks like I may have a few things that I just kind of want to strain out one more time. So I just strained this, and there was a few particles in here that I wasn't crazy about leaving them in, even though they're very, very minuscule. This stuff is perishable, and I'm gonna let it sit for 2 months in a dark place. So I just wanna make sure I get any food chunks out. I know this is kind of a strange way to filter. Our littler mesh filter was broken in the dishwasher. So, you know, you do what you gotta do, and you make do with what you have. Let's see if this made a little bit of a mess. Yeah, I think this probably got everything out that I needed to get out. Let me look. Light this up. I think so. Sorry, is there a big mess back there? Let me just sort of comb through it and make sure we got everything. Yeah, I think we did. Okay, so this is how easy this is, you guys. You're gonna take your mason jar or whatever you're storing it in, and you're just gonna start pouring it until it's full. We'll put a lid on it and we'll store it for 2 months. So in my mind, this will be ready to go January 1. That's kind of what I'm thinking. We'll just leave it. And of course, I'll need another mason jar, so let me get one more. The one thing I like about storing it in these smaller size, this is a 32 ounce mason jar, is that it can stay sealed until you need to use it, instead of having it like in a big 2-gallon jug. So let me do this one. And then once we get done with this, I want to take a quick second and just show you some other things that we've been doing around the garden for preservation of our herbs. I think I've got just enough. Top this one and this one off. Okay, so here is our 2 week in apple cider vinegar. And I am gonna put this with a lid. Now, What I don't know is how active the fermenting process is going to be. When you are fermenting things, you tend to want to have that headspace, like I mentioned earlier, so the gas that builds up doesn't explode and you have a big giant mess. But I've never made the vinegar before, so I'm not sure at this point if I still need to have coffee filters or like a regular mason jar lid. So I am actually going to put these to the side, and I'll do a little bit of research on that, and hopefully we can add a note onto the screen in editing about what type of lid to use for this. So this project is now done. We'll of course update you at the beginning of the year for how it turned out. Okay, so we're getting close to our first frost. It's the end of October. I'm not really sure, you're always sort of racing against Mother Nature here. Most of our herbs are not frost tender, which means when we get that first frost, the herbs are no longer going to be there for us. So I'm trying to harvest them as much as I can. And some of the things that we learned last year from harvesting the herbs is even though we thought we had a ton for 1 year's worth of food, we went through them so quickly. So I really learned last summer that, when you've got fresh herbs available, your family's gonna use them and they just elevate every single dish. So I made it a goal to be able to have more fresh herbs on hand, especially for those winter months. So this is the oregano and the tarragon vinegar that I made in last week's video. And I can tell you, just from smelling them, that they are probably ready. Hang on, I checked on them earlier, but now my seal is very sealed. Let's see if I can do this. I may have to ask my cameraman. There's the cameraman that does not exist. Let's see if I can do this one. Thank you very much. There's the tarragon. So, wow, this smells amazing. And this oregano vinegar is like amazing to do salads, especially a Greek salad or anything with that flavor profile. So what we'll do, I might give it another week to just steep because I like that really strong concentrated flavor. But we're gonna do the same thing that we did that you just saw with the apples. We're just going to take it out, strain it, and then seal it, and it'll be usable. And because it's vinegar, it is shelf stable. This will not have to be in your refrigerator, okay? This is a tarragon. Tarragon is so nice with chicken or pork. And so I'm pretty excited about being able to mix both of these vinegars and just, spicing up some other dishes. Some other things that we did is I've never preserved fresh herbs like this. And this is a very ancient preservation technique. It's putting herbs in just direct salt. And I used kosher salt. And this is dill. And so far, it's been wonderful. This is fresh dill from the garden, and you put salt on the bottom, a layer of dill, salt, a layer of dill, salt, a layer of dill. Pretty simple. Now, of course, it's been mixed back and forth, and so you can see it's not perfect little rows. But when I'm using this for eggs, I'm just pulling it out and rinsing the salt off. And that's been fabulous because you're not getting the saltiness of it. The salt is just the preservative. But the dill tastes just as fresh as when I picked it. And I don't have to put this in the refrigerator. So that's really nice if you're short on refrigerator space like we are. I made some salts. So the dill I preserved in salt. These are actual flavored salts that I made. And my son and I tend to be foodies and have a little bit more of an adventuresome palate. And so I'm kind of excited about exploring some of these flavored salts with him. But I'm hoping that the other members of my household that may not be as adventuresome eaters would be open to trying something like this. So this is lemon and lime zest, dehydrated, and then mixed in with salt. So it's like a little bit of a lemon lime citrus salt. It'll be so good on fish, chicken, or really anything that just needs a little bit of brightness. That's amazing. And because I dried everything first, it wasn't wet. This can be stored just like you would store salt. And then you guys, look at this. This is sriracha salt, and this is kind of addictive. I have been known to come down here and just eat these big chunks of sriracha salt like a snack. I mixed 1/4 of a cup of sriracha with 1 cup of salt all together. I laid it out on parchment paper, and then I dehydrated it. It took about 10 hours to dehydrate on 160 degrees. And once I did that, I was able to break it up into chunks. And this sriracha salt I've already used on so many things, and it just adds that great, great flavor. So I'm super excited about this. I really recommend you try making it. Again, I'll write all these instructions down for you. The basil salt is the one I'm not so sure about yet, but we'll see. First of all, what I did, smells great, was I took a 1/4 cup of basil from the garden, and then I took my knife and I cut it into the kosher salt. And it is still wet. And so this is living in the refrigerator because I did not dehydrate it. The thing that I noticed with this basil salt is that it's extraordinarily salty. It's way too salty for us. I mean, even just a little bit on pizza, it's overwhelming. So what I want to do as I keep harvesting basil out of the garden is keep cutting more and more basil into this salt mix so that we can sort of get it more herby than salty. So I'll keep you posted on that. But it's kind of been fun experimenting with the salts. That's not something we've done before. And it's a really easy way to incorporate some elevated flavors in your food. And this winter, when it's cold and dreary and gray, this will be a nice, hint of summer. The last thing that we did was, we had some garlic from the garden, and garlic stores for 4 to 6 months. Some of our garlic cloves, it looked like we're starting to get a little mushy, and of course we don't want that to all go to waste. So I took about 80 cloves that we grew last year, and I have replanted them in the garden. So they will be the now seeds for next year's garlic crop. And we're growing hard and soft nut garlic. They both do fine here, Zone 7B. But the rest, I then boiled for 2 minutes after peeling and put in this jar with olive oil and black peppercorns. And this will preserve the garlic. I'm not worried about botulism because I did boil them for 2 minutes. And we'll be able to use this as we go. And then, of course, the olive oil is getting flavored like the garlic. So once we're done with the actual garlic cloves, we still have a beautiful and delicious garlic oil. So I hope that gives you some ideas for how you might be able to preserve your herbs from your garden in a way that you and your family will really, really enjoy. You'll think about how good your harvest was all year long, and you won't let anything go to waste. So thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate you joining us every week. Please hit like and subscribe. We love having you here. And of course, our favorite thing about this whole entire project is when you guys comment and you tell us about who you are and where you live and what you're growing or what you're not growing. We are just having a blast getting to know all of you. So thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us, and we'll see you next week.